Learn the latest news surrounding more staff hires and staff promotions behind the scenes. We have updates on Jude Bellingham and updates on Endrick, and of course, let's discuss Mason Mount and his contract situation. Tons of things to break down and discuss. I want to give you guys a heads up. There's a lot of collabs that's going to be coming out over the next few days. Hope you guys enjoy them. I feel like it's time to have some very big conversations behind, how we're performing at the club and what the future holds for us. So I hope you guys will definitely like them. Of course, hit that like button, get involved in the comments. And before we get into anything, let me get one big plug out of the way first. Right now, there is a new episode of the Last Fan Standing series on BetVictor's YouTube channel. I'm going to play you guys a brief clip.
Well, first question I'm going to ask you guys is, would you put Maddison in that 10 role? Ads.
I've got him in mine.
Same, I have as well. I think he's not only should he. Was it a crime that he was sort of like a late addition. People were unsure about whether or not he was going to be into the World Cup.
So who starts ahead in the national team? Mason Mount or James Maddison? I think you guys can probably imagine who I'm going to be vouching for. That has to be Mason Mount. I just think that with the way that the national team approaches tournament football, they don't play this beautiful possession game. We will play off the ball. We are going to be direct. We are going to need some work rate. And I think Mount will complement what England are trying to do in the World Cup. Maddison is a great player. He's had a fantastic year. But if I was to be cynical, he's doing, decent numbers, good numbers for Leicester City. Once upon a time, Jack Grealish was also putting in great numbers at Aston Villa. Now that he's gone to the next level, it hasn't necessarily translated. I just think that maybe Mount's game is maybe a bit more well suited to these types of demands. And he does step up in knockout football. We've seen this time and time again at this football club. So I think for me, listen, this season has been a bit, so-so. I'll discuss that later on in this video. But they're my thoughts and opinions. What's yours? Who are you guys picking, Mount or Maddison to start for England? And of course, there's tons of interesting debates. You'll find a full episode link above and in the description below. So right now, let's kick things off and let's discuss the latest news surrounding the new staff appointment at the club, as today we announced the signing of Paul Winstanley from Brighton. He'd been at Brighton for around 8 years. He was acting as their head of recruitment, and to be fair, this guy did a fantastic job alongside his Brighton staff. The way that Brighton have transformed from being a team that was once managed by Chris Hughton to being a team that is, signing some very talented South American players, signing very talented teams at a young age. He clearly knows what he's doing, and I think this is a very wise appointment, especially as he's worked alongside Graham Potter as well too. So this is continuing to just emphasize that we have a long-term plan and strategy, and Graham Potter is most definitely involved in part of this process. Anyway, here's what Paul had to say after his appointment today, as he says, "I'm thrilled to be going to Chelsea and to continue working with Graham Potter and his team. There is a real sense of excitement and momentum around the new ownership and this project. I'm looking forward to working with such an outstanding group of colleagues as the club moves into a new era." So of course, today he signs as our new Director of Global Talent and Transfers. And knowing that Todd Boehly wants to create a multi-club network, we do need a competent staff of quite a few guys to really help run things efficiently, because there'll be this constant circulation of players moving left, right and centre, and you need the best minds who suit the philosophy Boehly is trying to build to get things running. So, it's definitely exciting that, the building steps we're creating now, the foundations we're creating to become this self-sustained club. It will take a few years, but in the long run, in the future, we'll look back on these periods with completely different sets of eyes and perspectives and be very grateful for the steps we took to go to the next level, in my opinion. But before we end things, let's discuss another promotional appointment today. And today, long-standing Chelsea staff member Neil Bath, who's had such an important role at this club for decades and decades now, today was announced as our Director of Development at the club. To give you guys some insight, this summer, Todd Boehly gave Neil Bath a blank check to basically sign any talented youngsters he wanted to. So he signed Kasade, he signed Hutchinson, he signed Slonina, he signed Chukwuemeka, and he's really vouched and advocated for signing Endrick as well too. Neil Bath is one of the best youth minds in football, in my opinion. He's been phenomenal at this club in terms of how he's raised Cobham to become the full force it is in English football. So it's nice that Todd Boehly really reveres what Neil Bath has to say, his experience as well as his knowledge. And I think that this is a great role to have, considering that the club are trying to make sure they complete their vision which is the 2030 vision. This is a massive club process of developing the next stars for the first team, of course developing the next squad players for the first team, loan players. I mean, I can go on. To be fair, I should be doing a separate video discussing Vision 2030, but it's this continuous plan to make sure that we have a process of competing and winning over the next decades. So I'm liking the steps, and I'm sure in the next few years we'll be seeing Kasida, your Hutchinsons, your Chukwuemekas, and many more adorning themselves in the first team. So that's all the staff news out of the way. Let's now briefly discuss the updates surrounding Jude Bellingham and Endrick. Starting with Endrick, we got some very interesting news as Endrick himself gave some official words, and as we learned from Fabrizio Romano, Endrick currently is studying English. Now, before we get too gassed and carried away, it's quite normal and typical for South American prospects to learn English as it's a universal language. They kind of learn it in Brazil as it is. And to be fair, throughout his career, if he's hoping to have a massive career in Europe, it makes sense to start learning English regardless. But still, knowing the fact that there is some confidence growing behind the scenes that we have a massive chance at signing him, as well as the fact that many reports are suggesting that he is very intrigued by playing in the Premier League, hopefully this is pointing in the direction that we are the favourites to be signing him. Let's not get too gassed or carried away though, because anything can still change in these negotiations. We found out as well today, literally like not too long ago, from Endrick's dad, that they will be travelling to Real Madrid's training centre, of course, to hold talks and see the environment. Every club, Paris Saint-Germain, us, and now Real Madrid are, doing their best efforts to entice Endrick to sign for them and believe in their projects they're selling to the player. I do think that we're currently offering him like a ridiculous offer and making him the face of the club, which I've been telling you guys is the plan that we have for him. And to be fair, I think this guy's a striker. By the time he's 18 years old, easily could be the face of us because he really is that good. And as Endrick said today, he's got a plan to hopefully play Champions League football in the next 2, 3, 4 years, which is very cryptic. But hopefully, it's really proving the fact that, listen, it's the project that's most important because I need to also develop to fulfill my potential. And that's what we need to see here. So now let's end things with the news surrounding Jude Bellingham. And today, Bellingham's camp is encouraging us, Man City and Liverpool, to make a concrete offer now. Basically, their plan is after the World Cup, they want to use the leverage that Bellingham probably will earn for himself after playing really well in the tournament to announce that he does want to move. And I'm guessing these reports are suggesting that Bellingham could be available in the next summer window. Now, going back to previous reports, we already know that Todd Boehly has been in constant contact and direct communication with Bellingham's camp and his parents as well too. We're trying to sign the best young teen talents and youth talents in Europe, the best ones we possibly can to, ensure that we complete this Vision 2030 project by having like one of the most talented young squads in Europe. And Bellingham midfields could be just that type of player to take things to the next level. Now, Sport Builder reported the story and they were suggesting that, currently there's some bad blood behind the scenes with Bellingham and his teammates. Essentially, they're saying that this conflict of interest, this refusal to commit himself at Dortmund, this standstill he's currently at with the club, is creating some tension with his teammates. The evidence for this? Well, they're suggesting that maybe his body language on the field isn't as well received by his teammates, and some of the players didn't like the fact that Bellingham has been appointed the third in standing to be the captain. For me, these are very petty things, they're not very substantial, and to be fair, there were the same reports around Haaland and Sancho as well too, so I'm not really understanding what's happening. But for me, I think the big story is that it seems like Bellingham wants to leave in the summer window, and now it's time for us to make that full offensive to try and sign him. I think this is one of those guys that has the potential to be one of the leading midfield players in world football. When these opportunities come up, you have to go for them and you have to take them. So what's your thoughts and opinions on Endrick and Bellingham, and do you think there's like a possibility that we could sign both players? Let us know below. And right now, to end things, let's discuss the latest news surrounding Mason Mount's contract. Now, some reports were suggesting that maybe Mount has been considering his future away. However, these reports were debunked today by The Athletic, who are saying that actually recently Egbali and Mason Mount's camp had a meeting a few weeks back and it was very positive and that breakthroughs have been made. Now, one of the main reasons behind why Mount didn't initially sign a new contract like what Reece James did by becoming the highest paid defender in the club's history was that we offered him a 7-year deal. Now, With Todd Boehly currently, he wants to offer incentivized contracts, which basically means that you get a very decent base salary fee, but tons of lucrative clauses on top, on an individual basis and a team basis as well too. So the only issue with that is that when you commit to these long-term deals, it does mean that you lose a lot of power eventually. So if Mount was to accept this contract, he'd be around 30 years old, but he could be thinking to himself, listen, by the time I'm 26, 27, I could be on a different level. I'd want to even grade some more substantial contracts. If I commit to this deal, then all my leverage is gone. So it makes sense why you wouldn't commit to something this big currently. But I mean, for sure, it says quite a lot about how the club value Mason Mount, and I'd imagine that this deal will be finalized, sometime during the season. I think Mason Mount is another guy that I need to create a separate video on because he's become such a Marmite player. Like, he's either loved or hated. There's no in between, and I feel like the truth is always somewhere in the middle. Now, of course, Mason Mount is not complete. He can grow and add to his game, but at the same time, some of the criticism against him is just a bit too reductive, and this same type of energy is never kept for his teammates who are also on the field with him as well too. And considering that he's been one of the most effective attacking players for us, when this isn't like his main best position, I'm sorry, Mount is a number 8. Mount is a midfield player. Mount is the guy that enables the play. He kickstarts the play. We should be using him in these creative capacities. This role he's playing as an attacking mid, alongside guys like Conor Gallagher and others we've seen with Kai Havertz as well too over the years, isn't as effective. I think in the final third, we need guys with 1v1 threat. You're not using Mason Mount as an attacking mid to dribble past opponents. That's not his game. And considering that a lot of times there's so much defensive emphasis placed on the attacking players to really help out the midfield, especially when N'Golo Kante is rarely playing for this team, I just feel like I'm worried that it could create a situation of stagnation. And I just think that now is the time to phase out the old midfields that haven't improved, that don't really get enough criticism, to be fair, considering they're one of the fortunate ones to be playing in their best positions in this team. I think that Mount is the guy that can bring that creativity, the switch balls. He can play passes between the lines. When he's influenced the game from deeper, he's a much better player. And I just think that, listen, there's a reason why all our attacking players suffer. No one wants to address that. Look at Sterling, the goals have dried up. Look at Pulisic, look at Ziyech, look at Havertz. Look at all these guys, yeah? It's not good for anyone. So I don't understand why Mount takes the full brunt of things. And I just kind of think that this whole social media discussion and argument just gets conflated way too often. It gets exaggerated. And then you're constantly forcing this, attack versus defense for Mason Mount when it doesn't even have to be like that. You can address the things he has to improve upon, whilst also acknowledging his qualities and strengths too. I don't understand why it's such a mad issue, but I'm going to stand by my guy Mason Mount. I've been watching this guy since he was flipping 16 years old. I've been following his career. There's a reason why I've been so passionate about introducing these guys for years before they got on the first team. And the difference from reading opinions online from people that actually watch the people they talk about compared to the ones that don't is literally just night and day, to be fair with you. So, you know what? I do feel like it'll be time for me to do a Mason Mount breakdown because it's getting a bit too mad, in my opinion. And I feel like people are missing the point and misconstruing what Mount is really about. So, you guys on that note, I'm going to wrap things up, keep things moving. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm the EFC. This is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.